Well, hey there, it's that coding guy here, breaking it down and making it accessible. Let's talk about tests. I love tests. I spent about 1.5 years as an automation engineer, and I learned a lot, and I had a blast. I think testing, sometimes there's a stigma against it. People think it's not too glorious. It's maybe kind of boring. But I love talking about testing any chance I get. And I find it's an area where people have a lot of questions. So let's dig into the different types of tests there are out there. And what I'll say is this list isn't all-inclusive. There are others out there, but I think it's a pretty good place to start. So let's go through each of these very briefly, and we'll talk about those. And then I've got this image of 3-tier architecture up here to help think about some of these things. And if you're not sure what that is, I've got a video for you. Go check it out. So let's start off with end-to-end testing. I think a lot of teams, when they say end-to-end testing, what they really mean is web browser automation. Web browser automation is when we have a full-stack application and we actually write a test that opens up a browser and navigates to our app and uses the app like a user would. So if we have a sign-up form that has text fields in there that we want a user to fill out and hit submit, well, the script will do that. The test will actually click into those fields, enter text from the test designer, and hit submit, and then we assert on what the page looks like after that happens. Did we go to a confirmation page? Or did a toast pop up and say, yes, you succeeded, good job? So those are web browser automation tests. And I think typically that's what people mean when they say end-to-end testing. However, if you've got a team that is working on an application that doesn't actually have a front end, end-to-end testing to them may mean that we're standing up the API and launching requests at the controllers and making sure that they work the way that we expect them to. And we're asserting on the results of those services. So again, these terms are very overloaded and they can mean different things to different people. So if you hear someone say end-to-end test or E2E, you'll see this abbreviated a little bit. Ask them what they mean by that and see what they say. I think integration test is another type of test that is really overloaded as well. And before we talk about integration tests, I'll actually define unit tests. This is pretty ubiquitous. When we talk about unit testing, we're typically talking about one unit under test. And that unit is typically a method or a function. And anything that method does that calls another method would typically be mocked. Not all the time, but typically you really want to isolate that unit and only test its logic. So by contrast, an integration test is a unit test where we don't actually mock. So if we have one function that calls another function and we're testing that one function, then that's an integration test if we're not doing any mocking. But as I said, integration test to some folks may mean, well, we're going to write controller integration tests where we're just testing a response from an API that actually integrates with a data source. And to them, that means integration testing. So again, if you hear someone say, oh, we're doing integration tests, ask them what they mean by that. Your mileage may vary. That's what I'll say there. So smoke tests. Smoke tests are small, quick tests that give a team confidence when they make changes or when they do a deployment. And those can mean a lot of different things as well. Penetration testing is where security specialists will use a site and try to break in and make sure that everything is secure. Things like checking out tokens and looking for SQL injection, among lots of other things. Performance testing is typically when we have APIs or services, and we'll stand those up and we'll launch a bunch of requests at them very quickly. One of the popular frameworks out there for this was called Gatling, for that reason. And so you can really see when that service comes under load, how it handles those. And if a certain endpoint is taking too long to respond, that can be a smell, like a code smell, and lead teams to go check out the code that's in there, and maybe it can be optimized somehow so that it runs better and doesn't cause problems. So that's all about the performance of the application or the system or a service. Functional testing really focuses on the aspect of how it works from a user or the business perspective and how those features work. Non-functional tests are all of the things that aren't necessarily features but can still be tested, such as response times for a service. Is there a threshold where we really need those to fall? As you can imagine, something like a bank would need something very snappy and secure and things like that. And they may have higher requirements for that type of thing than a different sort of business domain. And then acceptance testing is, or user acceptance testing is typically where the actual users of the site themselves will test the system and make sure that it meets their requirements. Typically, this is internal applications that get tested in this way. But as I said, there's other types of tests, and this is not necessarily an exhaustive list, but it's a good place to start. So if you're curious about any of those, take a look, do a little research, and as always, I would say engage in discussions with other developers and see what they're doing. Are they writing unit tests at all? Are they not? Do they have any automation specialists on their team? What does their QA process look like? And in that way, you can kind of dig in and see what other people around you are doing and have some good discussions. Hope this helps. Cheers.